Well, it's great to see all of you here tonight, especially the fact that we have a packed room with standing room only. We're very excited about the enthusiasm that you guys are showing about learning about NutraMetrix. We know it's been a long day, and we want to keep you entertained throughout the next segment where we first do a panel with our health professionals, and then we're going to bring up some successful NCs. So let me introduce to you our panel of health professionals. First up, we have Dr. Stephen Schnurr, who you saw on the main stage this afternoon. Dr. Schnurr is a cardiologist based here in Miami Beach. We also have his partner, Dr. Perry Kritchmar, who you met yesterday when he did the talk on magnesium. So please welcome cardiologist Dr. Kritchmar up here. You met the other two, Dr. Stan Pierce, come on up. He's the chiropractor from the Tampa Bay area that you met today. And then Dr. Deidre Mason, our Director of Clinical Research and Education, who's also a practicing naturopath. If you could please join us on the stage. And I just want to say hello to all the people on MeetOn. You know, it's great to have you here joining us tonight at home as well. So I love the fact that we can be connecting with people from all around the world tonight too. So if we could just have a seat, everyone. And we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to go back and forth between the practitioners and how they implement in their practice and how NutraMetrix has impacted them. We'll start off with Dr. Mason talking a little bit about the products. Dr. Mason, as a naturopath, as you mentioned earlier today, naturopaths, you, in your words, said have a tendency to be a little snobby because they are very well versed in nutraceuticals. What made you spin on your heels and really decide, out of all the products available in the market, that the NutraMetrix line was going to be the best fit for your practice?
Because I knew as an IV therapist, someone that takes a needle and a tube and a bag full of nutrients and puts it into people's veins, I knew that it was necessary. The reason why I do that is because it's necessary to bypass somebody's stomach and intestines, because these are usually tore up in people with chronic issues. People usually wait until they're pretty poor off before they come and see their physician. And so I knew that nutraceuticals are not better absorbed in these patients, and I may have to find another way to bypass that. So I used IV therapy. When my NutraMetrix consultant said isotonic, I knew that that was a principle of IV therapy or intravenous nutrition. So what I asked more about then was, is this actually an isotonic, an oral solution that can get past some of the inflammation or issues associated with chronic disease or gut disorders? Is it bioavailable? And so we had a big discussion about its bioavailability. The fact that it was able to do this with no fillers and binders. Even the best of raw ingredients in the professional channel and other companies still have excipients in them, fillers and binders. So to be able to offer a product that had no fillers and binders, I was able to customize. I was able to ensure a higher level of bioavailability, even in someone with a tore-up gut. It was a no-brainer. It really exceeded anything else we had on the market. The measure of that was the fact that it produces results in our patients. I was skeptical in the beginning, but the fact that our patients continue to get results, continue to reorder or refer their patients to us, it just really sealed the deal.
Now, I want to touch on a point you just brought up and carry it over to Dr. Pierce. You use a lot of the custom formulas in your practice as well, Dr. Pierce. And Dr. Mason mentioned how she can customize a product for her practice. You use primarily custom cocktails in your practice. Can you tell us a little bit about how the custom cocktails have helped you increase your reorder rate and why you choose to use custom cocktails in your practice?
Good. When everybody thinks of custom formulas, usually we think maybe connecting it to GeneSnip for an individual patient's customization. There's also a different ability to use custom formulas, and that is to match the identity of the doctor's practice. So, for example, if you're working with somebody who specializes in diabetes, you might talk to this physician about what are some complementary supplements that would assist with the stabilization of the pancreas function. Maybe you called it insulin support formula, pancreas support formula, something very consistent with that doctor's identity. So in our practice, we do upper cervical specific chiropractic work and looking for joint stability, nervous system recovery, maximizing blood flow. We customize a few items, a few nutrients in isotonic form into a single solution. We call it upper cervical base formula, and we try to standardize that as part of our protocol of care. So it's not awkward, it's not something that's weird or extraneous to our identity of what we're trying to accomplish. It matches it. So for any health professional office, it's very easy to kind of streamline that concept through because it's consistent with what they're already preaching and teaching out of their practice.
And one of the things that I love about it that I learned from you at one of the NC trainings, so everybody that you see on this panel here tonight, they teach at our HP courses and they teach at our NC trainings. And so we've learned a lot from each other. And one of the things that I've learned from you is, prior to offering the custom cocktails, it was easy for a patient that you recommended, let's say, a B vitamin, a vitamin D, and a multivitamin. If they ran out, it was easy for them to walk past a GNC in the mall and think to themselves, oh, I need more of the B vitamins. And they would just go in. But how has the custom cocktail kind of minimized that for you?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So whether you were going to customize it per person or whether you were going to customize it for an identity of a practice. Let's say one of my patients starts to run out of upper cervical base support formula and they happen to be going through Sam's Club, Walmart, GNC, whatever, and they're running low on their vitamins. Well, are they likely to find an upper cervical base support formula sitting on the shelf? No, not at all. But if it was just the B complex or just the multivitamin, are they likely to see some competitive multivitamin or B on the shelf? Yes, so it really helps to kind of encourage reorders and consistency of them continuing to use what you're recommending because they can't find it somewhere else.
One of my favorite stories that you've told also is about new patient, people showing up wanting to be your patients because of these. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that was weird. The first time that happens when, you're used to treating patients and they recognize what you do and people come in for the upper cervical care that we do. And so when we had somebody come by the front desk and say, hey, I'm here because I would like to buy some of the upper cervical base formula. Or I'd like to buy some OPC. And my girls at the front desk came back to me and they're like, are we allowed to do this? I'm like, well, who is it? How do they know our practice? I was just a little skeptical. It was the first time that happened. And so I'm like, well, go ahead. I mean, it's good stuff. Sell it to them, and we'll see how it goes. And it was great. They kept coming back in to reorder it. Or I had a patient, a 16-year-old boy, and he couldn't down the omegas, because they're a little big. This was before we had the kids' omega-3s. And so his mom brought him in for a checkup, and his mom said to me, hey, I just want to let you know I'm doing really well with your care. I'm like, you're not a patient of mine. She goes, oh, yeah, I've been taking his omegas, and my arthritis is so much better, thank you. I'm like, all right, you're welcome. And she ended up becoming a patient with the upper cervical work, but it was weird, but it was great,
New patients are a good thing. We like new patients, right?
Dr. Kritchmar, we've talked before about before you guys offered NutraMetrix in your practice, you didn't really see a need to offer nutraceuticals because you didn't get a lot of results from any nutraceuticals that you recommended. Can you talk a little bit about how you've evolved from not really offering nutraceuticals to now doing over $200,000 a year 3 years later in nutraceutical sales?
Yeah, when we first got started, we knew that as a health and wellness company, we had to get into nutraceuticals because people kept coming in and asking us for them, and they would bring in a bag of nutraceuticals and they would say, doctor, is this okay? Can I be taking these? And really, in medical school, they don't teach us much about nutraceuticals. We probably get a half a day and that's about it. Prior to NutraMetrix, we were selling some products which we thought were high quality products, and it's a well-known company, but it just wasn't fitting our needs. There was no distribution. And when we got involved with NutraMetrix, and I've told the story 100 times, so I'm not going to reiterate it again, we found a company that we knew we could work with, that could distribute, that we had an internet, that we could show the products. And the evolution is that when we first got started, Dr. Stern and I, we just hung up, we just got started. We started with 1 or 2 products. And what's important to know here is that I started with 1 or 2 products, a multivitamin and fish oils, because I knew that's what my patients needed. And as time goes on, as you go to NC trainings, you go to HP implementations, you go to NEI courses, you find that every year, I go from 1 product to 2 products to 4 products to 8 products, and now I could sell 15 or recommend 15 different products to my patients. I hear Stan, I hear everybody here, and you just keep learning and learning and learning. And I have the geek here next to me that just, she just keeps talking, and there's only so much that I can absorb. So eventually what happens is that, she's good. She's been good tonight. So then what happens is that I'm convinced now, how do I convince my patients? how do I convince patients that this is the real deal? And some of you heard me mention on stage the other day about, the laboratories. Well, there's a company out there. Now, this is a little pearl for you guys to talk to your HPs out there, that there's a company called HDL, or Health Diagnostic Laboratories, and you should get in touch with them because this is another way for your HPs or your physicians to make extra income drawing labs, okay? It's a very well-known company. Throughout the United States. There's no patient balance billing, but that's another. When you go to your NC training, we'll tell you more about it. That's not what we're here for tonight. So when you use when I was giving patients nutraceuticals, or even before I was using NutraMetrix, I could only give them my anecdotal experience, or meaning that when I would tell them about the products, how better I felt, how would I prove it? Just from me telling them that they really work. But now I have laboratory markers to show them it really works, okay? So for instance, I'll just give you a couple of the labs. Now when I see a patient, I just do this laboratory, so I get my baseline. And on page 1, besides recommending a multivitamin for everybody, page 1 I would have 2 inflammatory markers, which would be C-reactive protein, or high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, and LP-PLA2. I'm not going to get into big things, but let's talk about C-reactive protein. Well, we know that OPC3 is clinically proven to lower C-reactive protein. So that would be the first recommendation. I go to page 2. They have insulin levels and free fatty acid levels. Well, if I see that, I could recommend isochrome or advanced level B90. I go to page 3. Then they have my fish oil content that's in the bloodstream. But I could recommend the Heart Health Essentials. And when I get their baseline fish oil level, and it's 4.5, and it should be over 8, and I recommend it, and they say, okay, we'll get it. But when they come back 3 months later and I order it again, and I see their level is 4.5 again, I say, are you taking it? Yeah, I'm still taking it. Are you taking ours? No. Well, it's very obvious you're not taking ours because your level hasn't changed. So you see, I prove to the patients that what ours does, or even the same thing with vitamin D. They say just because a patient's taking something, and again, you may have heard me say this before, just because a patient is taking a nutraceutical doesn't mean it's doing anything. If I treat you all with a high cholesterol drug or a hypertensive drug, just because you're taking a drug, but if I'm not controlling your blood pressure, if I'm not lowering your cholesterol, that doesn't mean I'm doing anything for you. And it's the same thing if you're taking junk nutraceuticals. Just to say you're taking something doesn't mean I'm helping you. So it doesn't mean if they're taking fish oil, it doesn't mean if they're taking vitamin D out there, that's not doing anything for them, and I could prove it to them by giving them a laboratory that shows how they're doing it. It doesn't necessarily have to be HDL, it could be any laboratory, because a lot of these labs you can do in certain different labs throughout the country. You got that?
And
Awesome.
what's so cool is I've actually been in the exam room with Dr. Kritchmar when he's explaining the lab results to a patient, so he could show me how he was using it. And he can actually show the patient, look, I know you're taking a vitamin D, and I know you're saving a little bit of money by buying your vitamin D at Costco over buying the vitamin D we have here, but clearly it's not working. So the money that you're saving is not translating into the result that we were looking for. And that would be no different than if he recommended a blood pressure medication but gave it at a dose that's way too low for the patient to actually do anything. What's the point in taking it if it's not going to be physiologically active in the body, or it's not going to produce the result you want, right? So when he can do these blood tests, he can show them, well, if you tried it your way, it's not working, now it's time to try it my way. And what always ends up happening is they try our product, he tests them again, and they see the results. And that creates brand loyalty, and that creates reorders, which is fantastic. Dr. Schnur, today on the panel, you talked about running into your cardiologist friends that you haven't seen in a while at the dinner that Dr. Kritchmar asked me if you talked about the Last Supper. So
we call them the Titanic.
They're sinking on the Titanic, the cardiologist you work with.
I said it was the last.
Yeah. Since I've been working with you guys over the past 3 years, I've seen a lot of doctors come to you because in addition to owning their own practice, they own an MSO, which is a managed service organization where they help other physicians try to stay alive, right? And so you've worked with a lot of practitioners, both in your office and outside of your office, to try to help them stay afloat. What are some of the, just for the audience that's new to NutraMetrix, what are some of the financial challenges being faced by doctors today, and how can NutraMetrix help overcome that?
Well, I mean, first, I got to say I'm amazed at how many people are here at Friday at 8:45. So obviously, everyone in this room is really interested in how to build their NutraMetrix business. And I appreciate it, and I feel from the heart how much you guys want to be involved and want to do. I mean, we've been involved with doctors who are having a hard time financially probably over the last 3 to 4 years. And we've been doing NutraMetrix, for 3 years. And so I see all the challenges that not only the doctors are feeling, but how to get them to, I guess, not be one-trick ponies, not be dinosaurs. And you have what's called the early adapters, that segment of the population that adapts real quickly. And then you have the people that don't adapt as quick, and then you have the late adapters. But I will tell you that from my experience when it comes to placing NutraMetrix in a physician's office, one of the biggest things, and we've touched on it, is trying when they do, give a patient a fish oil, an omega-3, a vitamin D, you don't want it to be one and done. That one and done has to turn into reorders. Because the only way a physician is going to make enough money, which is going to hold his interest in NutraMetrix, is if he increases his reorder rate so that the volume scales up. That's really, so if there's one thing that you can get physicians to start and consider a program, but then after a couple of months, if they're not making enough money that is going to make it worth their while, you're going to find physicians are going to start to lose a little bit of interest.
I want to comment on that as well, because a lot of people here haven't been to NC training yet. This is why it's so important for you to attend an NC training, because what he's really talking about is it's easy for anybody to recruit a doctor.
Right.
What's not easy, because you need to learn how to do this, is to get the doctor to successfully implement and put an implementation plan in place that encourages the reorders, that encourages auto ship, that encourages keeping the patient on the program. And so we've seen in the past that there are some NCs out there that are great recruiters, but then what they do is they sign the doctor up and they say, good luck, you're on your own, and they walk out the door. That doesn't work. And so what you need to do is you need to come to training and learn how to create an implementation plan so that you can help them see financial rewards quickly, which Lauren showed you an example of that today. And especially with the HP1 program, as long as they can get patients purchasing on a regular basis, they can earn commission checks regularly, even without expanding distribution into the referral network. But once you get them seeing regular commission checks through a proper implementation, then all of a sudden you have them and they see the promise, they see the potential, and then they're with you for a while.
I mean, we have someone who works in our office that all they do, their job is to run our NutraMetrix organization. We're a physician practice, but the reality is if we didn't have this person who solely is doing that, it becomes more challenging. So I think the challenge for you, it all comes down to supporting the physicians that you bring in. It's easy to get the first date, but if you want the girl to go on a second date, you got to put a little work in. So it's a little bit of work. You can ask them for the first date, they'll say yes, give you a shot, but so the story is that it's really important to work hard with the physicians and to show them that they're scaling up. Every patient that winds up buying a NutraMetrix product, they got to hold on to that patient like the patient is gold. And Dr. Critchmer and I are playing, and with Brandy, with a lot of new ideas of how to really scale up the reorder rate in general, because I look at it like it's a captured audience. I know that once a patient buys vitamin D, that the only reason they're not going to buy vitamin D in a month is really because they're just unfortunately lazy. They don't want to come back to the office to do it, and they didn't want to leave their credit card on file for auto ship there. So there has to be a mechanism that you kind of put in place when you implement your doctors to make it easy for them to recapture those individuals. And that's really going to be the name of the game, because once they recapture the patients, the revenue stream really scales up to a point where they're going to get excited. And as they get excited, they get more involved. And as they get more involved, they're going to sell more product. And it becomes like a vicious cycle.
I just want to point out one thing. Their practice is based here in, Dr. Kritchmar's is up in kind of the Fort Lauderdale area, Pembroke Pines, and Dr. Schnur's is based here in Miami Beach. And they've decided that because everybody's here this weekend, if you want to see the way that they implement in their practice and you want to actually take a tour of their office, they're going to open up their practice on Sunday morning from 10 to 12. If you're still in the area and you want to tour the practice, stop by the NutraMetrix booth tomorrow, and there will be sign-up sheets where you can sign up for a tour, and you'll get the address of the office. It's only 5 minutes from here. It's right across the bridge.
Dr. Kritchmar said that he would stay from 10 to 10 the next day. And that, and Dr. Pierce said that he would show up as well. And we won't leave out Dr. Mason, and of course, Brandon. So I will tell you, I'll be at my house on Meet On, and I will watch all you guys at the office, and I'll wave.
Hey, I will tell you, I actually went and got to see their practice last Wednesday, and it's great. You really, if you have a chance to see it, be quick about it so you can head home. But, go by and see it. It's really impressive.
It is Super Bowl Sunday, just keep in mind.
So the office will be open from 10 to 12, and there will be sign-up sheets at the NutraMetrix booth tomorrow for signing up for the tour. We're going to switch out the panel now. I want to thank all of you for your participation on the panel. We are going to bring up a panel of NCs for the next segment. Thank you, guys. Thank you.